Guys, xin chào các bạn, buenas amigos. In today's video, I'm going to walk you through my solution for the Odin project to build a Google homepage. So the purpose of this project is for us to recreate the Google homepage. And my final version of the project looks like this. For editors, you can either use Codepen or Visual Studio Code. In this video, I will show you guys how to use both, as well as how to push your changes through Git and then upload your project onto GitHub. For the first half and the majority of the video, I will be using Codepen because I find it that it's easier for my workflow, as I'm able to edit both HTML and CSS side by side, as well as it shows the real-time updated changes in the same window. So that way it's easier on my side as well as for you, because you guys will get to see me editing both HTML and CSS simultaneously, as well as seeing the changes being updated as I type the code. Discretion, this is my take on the project. I'm not saying everything in this video is best practice. There are flaws or things that I might have missed at this point in time. However, this video can give you ideas and perhaps a step in the right direction. Those of you doing this may find better methods or opportunities for improvements, and I would love to hear about them if you'd like to share them in the comments. With all projects, I want to keep the end in mind. I want to know what my destination is or the vision I'm trying to achieve. So the purpose of this project is for us to recreate the Google homepage. So the Google homepage, when I load it as is, looks something like this. So then using this, I then brainstorm my outline on how I can achieve or recreate this page. So my outline looks something like this, and I like to brainstorm an outline first because this gives me direction throughout the project, and it's kind of like an attack plan. So in this outline, I'll quickly go over what I interpret. There's three main sections that we're going to build. So first is our Nav Bar up here, where you can see About, Store, Gmail, Images, and your square icon and your profile icon. So this we can most likely, from first look, we can most likely achieve this using the flex element. The second main thing that we want to build is our body here, which has the Google logo and the search bar. And from first look, we can most likely achieve this using a grid element. So this can be separated into 4 grid rows. So the first row will have our logo, the Google logo. The second grid row will have our search bar. The third grid row will have our 2 buttons. And then our fourth grid row will have the offering in another language. And then because we see, so I saw that there's 2 buttons in the middle. So here is where I'm like, okay, maybe we can further separate this with 4 columns. So column 1, column 2, column 3, column 4, and then in column 2 and 3, we can put our buttons in the middle there. And then the body, there is some spacing of our body from the top. So for spacing, we can either use padding, margin, or position to push our body a little bit lower, like a little bit more center on the page. Just to reiterate, in our first grid row, with the Google logo, we'll most likely use an IMG element here. In the second grid row, we have a search bar, so most likely we'll be using the input text form element. And then in grid row 3, we have buttons, so most likely we will use the input submit type element here. And then in the fourth row, it's pretty simple. It's just text. Google offered in Francais. So here, the only thing is worth noting is the Francais is a link. So most likely we'll be using text and then adding a link element in the fourth row. So moving on to the third main section that we want to build for the Google homepage is down here where we see 2 bars. These look very similar to our Nav Bar on top. So from first look, we can most likely use the flex element. So if anything, we'll probably copy the code that we built in number 1 in our Nav Bar, and then just paste it to create these 2, and then just make slight adjustments so that it reflects this gray shading in the background, and then just change up the link text here. So advertising, business, how search works, privacy, terms and conditions, and settings. I'm just going to quickly breathe through the tabs that I currently have open to show you why they're open. So moving on to the next tab, this is just the tab with the instructions from the Odin project to build the Google homepage. And as you can see, so like just to save time on the video, I'm just going to show you guys the most important point on this page, which is essentially here. The assignment and the purpose of the project is the purpose is right here, to essentially build the google.com homepage. Okay, so I've loaded that on the first tab, so that's fine. Okay, moving on to the fourth tab. This is just a blank Codepen that I've uploaded, and we're going to start typing our code into this Codepen shortly. In the fifth tab is our settings. So I know in the previous coding videos that you guys gave me feedback that the font was too small, so I'm going to change that right now in the video as we speak. So right now it's at 15, so let's add 10 points to it. So the text is now at 26, so hopefully you guys will be able to see font 26. So yeah, let me know in the video, let me know in this video if 26 is good enough. Let me just reload this Codepen. Okay, so yeah, 26 looks like it should be big enough. Okay, and then in the sixth tab, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. In the sixth tab is just my version of the project, what it looks like at the end. As you can see here, it's not google.com, it's the Codepen address. And then moving on to our seventh tab, this is the Google logo that we will be using in our project. And then on the Odin project, they give you a link to the link to the picture here, I believe. Just give me a sec. Here's a link to the Google logo, just in case they temporarily replace it with Doodle. So if you click this, this will open. And then these other tabs are essentially just snippets, screenshots of the elements on the page where I then uploaded onto Imgur. So if you just go on Google and type in Imgur upload, you can essentially upload your snippets up there to use in the project. Another feedback from my previous videos was people preferred it that I typed it code by code. So this video will be longer than usual. It'll be actually quite long. So I will, for those who want to just skip to specific or certain parts, I will provide you guys the index or the kind of like the time stamps in the video description below. Okay, so let's start coding. So we don't need JavaScript in this video. The main skills that we'll be utilizing will be HTML, CSS, Git, and GitHub. So let's just have those two windows open just to make it easier for our workflow. So what I like to do for any kind of HTML project is essentially just to first type out the layout. So this is HTML. So what I'm going to do is just state that it's a HTML by writing this tag HTML and then close with HTML. And then the next thing is, so with the HTML layout has three main sections. The first, okay, so the three layouts are the head, the body, and the footer. So let's create those. Let's do head and then head, close that head, and then the body, hash, and then close the body, and then the third one is footer, and then close the footer as well. Close footer. So what you can do to help kind of distinguish these areas, I like to add a comment, an HTML comment. So one is the head, and then we can copy this, paste it for the body, and then change this head to body. Copy this, and then paste it for footer as well. Here, let me move this down. Two, and then number 3. Footer. Oh, footer. Okay, so those are our three main sections. And then inside the body, there's also subsections. The common one would be header and main. So let's create those, header, and then we'll close it as well. Header, and then main, close it. So just a brief description. So in head, this is where we will type in our metadata, things, for example, that would show on the search engine, or for example, like if you wanted to share this link to someone else, the data inside the head section would show up as, like, for example, the description, the title, and like the preview thumbnail, things like that. For body, this is where our main content will appear. So in the header section, inside body, this is most likely where your navigation bar will be placed. And then inside main, this is essentially the meat of the the page, the structure, the contents, the section, the paragraph, pictures, etc. So that's essentially the body. Body is essentially the main what do you call it? Meat of the HTML structure. And then footer here you can put in credits, like for example, the author, links, references, things like that. So in header, let's add meta character set equals to quotation UTF-8. So this is our character encoding that we're specifying for our for our HTML. Essentially, UTF covers all characters and symbols. It's most commonly used. It's essentially specifying the characters that we will be representing on our webpage, right? So let's move on to the next meta. So these are there is perhaps more meta codes that are out there, but I'm just going to cover the most common and most used ones. So the second meta would be meta name equals to description. So here, content equals to, here we can, so the description of this web page can be the Odin Project dash Google Homepage is sufficient for our description. And then the next meta that we can do is a keywords meta, which is something, for example, a search engine would kind of scan through web pages to look for, like if someone was searching for something on Google. So meta, the name will dictate the type. So this one will be keywords. So then here, the keywords I like for this web page to have is the Odin Project, Google Homepage, I guess my YouTube channel's name, and my name. And then we'll close it. And then the next meta that we can do is the author. So meta name equals to author equals to content equals to some author. I just use my YouTube channel's name, Ivu Dang. So in these metas, you can see name is like the type, and then content is the specific info we want it to have. And then another important meta that we should also include is one that applies to mobile viewports. So meta name equals to viewport, content equals to quotation width equals to device dash width, comma, initial scale equals to 1, quotation, and then close with an arrow. Okay. we also want to have a title. So title, the Odin Project Google Homepage. Title. So title, what this does is it, like if this wasn't on Codepen and it was on, let's say, hosted on a normal server on a normal host, this title thing would show up here as the text. So right now I have the Odin Project Google Homepage. So up here in this tab here, the tab text would show as the Odin Project Google Homepage in here. The next set of data I'm going to write are media share meta tags. Here, let me add that comment. Media share meta tags. So these are essentially codes that will affect how your link will appear when you share it to your friends, for example, on Instagram or Facebook or I don't know, WhatsApp, things like that. It will show, like when you paste the link, it will show the preview thumbnail, the title, and the description of the link. So this will affect that kind of, you know, that kind of, it will affect that kind of link, right? So meta property equals to OG title, and then content equals to the Odin Project Google Homepage. Here, we're not using CSS. I'll just minimize this a bit. Meta property equals to OG content for this image. I wonder if this image works. I wonder if this link works. I didn't know what image to use. I'm just using one that's random. Okay, cool. This one works. Meta property equals to OG description content equals to Google homepage by Dang. Okay, so first one is the title, second is the image that would appear if you were to send the link, third is the description of the link. Like if you were to share the link, this description would appear. The fourth one, data property equals to OG. For this one, HTTP. So this is the link to your project. For this one, you can either use your Codepen or your GitHub. For this one, I'll just redirect it to my GitHub repository, which we'll cover later in the video. But for now, I'll just share the GitHub link, github.com. Dang. Google-homepage. I hope that works. Here, let me double check the link. Copy. Okay, cool. Works. Data property. And the last made up property is one just to specify what kind of content or link this is. So this one will be content equals to website. And then in the header, we also want, this is commonly where you also add your link reference to your CSS style sheet so that you can apply your CSS to your HTML. It's not good practice to it's good practice to separate your HTML from your CSS as well as your JavaScript. Each one should have its own file. It's not good practice to include your CSS formatting in your HTML. So here we're going to link or reference it out. So let me just add a comment. Important, need to reference out our CSS. Close our comment. So link href. So we haven't created our CSS file, but later in the video I'm going to create a file called style.css. So this is just preemptive, preemptive coding at the moment. So for this attribute rel, it will always be style sheet. You guys don't have to understand, or essentially for this attribute it will always be style sheet. So there's not really any changes that you would expect for this attribute. Now we can start on our body. So let's scroll down. So first thing we want to build is the nav bar, but even before that, we know on the Google homepage we have a white background, and if we use developer tools, let's just figure out their font type. So you can access your developer tools by pressing F12 on the keyboard, or you can access it through this icon here and then clicking on here. For this one I have to take a closer look. Options, I think it's in options, or no. Do I have to close this before it shows in here? Customize. Oh, web developer. Here we go. Inspector. So you can open the browser's web developer tools in 3 ways. First is here. Let me close it. First is through here. Web developer. So first is through the drop down. Second is the keyboard shortcut, pressing F12. And the third way is just right-clicking and pressing Inspect Element. So there's 3 ways you can open or activate web developer tools. So here we can see that the Google homepage, their font family uses Arial sans serif. So that's essentially what will apply in our CSS starting off, because that's something that is general settings that can be applicable throughout throughout the project. So here we can write general effects, body, and then so our font family where we saw earlier, it was Arial, and it's sans serif. And then our background color is white. Oops, so that should be closed. So this next section that will be formatting will be our nav bar effects. So we'll first create our HTML first, and then we'll fill in our CSS shortly here. So in header, let's create our nav bar. So let me just add a comment here, nav bar. So for the nav bar, what I want to do is here we see, to me, I see 2 things, right? I see one container, but then this container can be split up into two things, right? So we see about and store in one side, and then we see Gmail images and our icons on the other side. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create first the general container, like the one container that covers from left to right, and then inside the container we'll have two smaller containers. So let me translate that into code right now. So div class equals to nav flex container. So this is the big one that will contain both of the smaller ones. So in this tutorial, I'll also add borders to kind of help visualize what I mean. I'll do that in a bit. So here we'll have to close it, div, and then inside this big container we'll add our two smaller elements, our div elements. So div class equals to nav flex child 1. So UL stands for unordered list. Here is where we'll list those two two text items, about and store. Well, they're essentially link elements. UL class, we'll call this nav. So again, just a refresher, most of the time I will use class to use as a reference or anchor in my CSS. It's only in specific circumstances where I would use ID. Most likely I would use ID for if I wanted to implement JavaScript functions that are pulling the HTML code. Anyway, so this one I'll call nav bar left. So in this UL, I'll add those two text or link items, href. So you can copy the link, but I'm just going to leave the link blank at the moment. So href is where usually you would input your link. So the text is about. Then we'll close our link element with we'll close our listed item as well. So listed item here, and then our A here, so we close both over here, and then the second one, href. Again, I'll just leave the link blank, and then just type in the text, store A, and then we'll close the A element as well as the LI element. Okay. And then we also want to close our UL element as well. Okay. So we created the first, what do you call it? The first, oh wait, I forgot to close it with, did I close that with a div? No, I didn't. We should close this with a div. So we've created our first child, or because in our big bar we wanted two smaller bars, right? Or two smaller elements. So we created the first one on the right, and now we want to create one for the left, the second child. So let's copy and paste this. Copy. And then paste. So we'll just call this navFlexChild 2. Cool. And then we'll call this one the right. Oh, sorry. Okay, so the first one was the left, right? And then this one is the right. Okay. So for the right, we have Gmail images. So we have 4 items. So let's create 4 of those. We can close this. So copy this, copy this, copy. So now we have 4 things, right? Okay. So here we had Gmail, and here we had images. So going back to earlier where I had these 3 icons ready. So as you can see here, we have the square icon and picture icon. I'm just gonna plug those in using the images I preemptively uploaded. So let's delete this, and then we'll write an img element code here. So img class, we'll call it the square dash icon, and then src equals to so the square icon is this one. We'll just copy the URL, and then the alt attribute is in case if this picture did not work, what will show. So the description square icon will show in case if that link does not work. Okay, so the next one is our profile icon. So we're just going to copy this img link, and we'll paste it. We'll paste it in here, my friend, and we'll change the description of it. So class, we'll change that reference to profile icon, and then the description should be profile icon. And then that will be pulling from this URL. So let's copy that URL, and then we'll paste it in here. Save. Okay, so we created our main nav container, which is here, and then inside our main, here, let me clean this up a bit. So inside our main nav container, we have 2 smaller ones, which is this one, the first one, the nav child 1, and then the second one is here, the nav child 2. And then now we'll apply our CSS formatting to the HTML content that we just created. So we'll first format our nav flex container. So period nav flex container. Here, display flex, because we want to use the flex element, flex direction, space between. So space between essentially spreads out our content within that container. So that's why we want to use space between. Padding npx. So this will apply to top and bottom. Gives it some spacing. It will give some spacing at the top and the bottom. Oh yeah, I'll show you guys in a bit. I'll add the border for it to show. Position fixed. So this is to position at the top. So width we'll do 100%. We want 100% because we want to cover it from left to right. And then from left, we want to start at 0 px. And then at the top, we also want to start at 0 px because we want it at the very top. Next, we want to format our flex container links, because essentially all of these texts up here on the Google homepage are actually links. They're A elements. Well, they're text, but they're wrapped in A elements. So that's why we also want to format the A elements. So nav flex container. So all A elements within the nav container. So we first reference our main. What do you call it? Our main reference point, and then all A's within this reference point. Here, let me write a comment as well. we cannot apply this to li, must apply separately to a nature or links on the Google homepage. So even though on the Google homepage these are LIs, the listed items are within the A elements. So to actually format the appearance of those, we have to do it. We have to address them here specifically. So color, we want to inherit whatever that we will apply at the bottom, but most importantly, the text decoration, we don't want anything. Text dash decoration is none. Because normally, links, A elements on pages will be blue and underlined. And as you can see on the Google homepage, they're not blue and they're not underlined, so we want to specify that the text decoration is none. Okay, so next up, let's format our nav. Oh wait, the nav container here to delete. We'll add a border. Border 2px solid red to delete. So this is just to help show what's my code is doing. We'll delete these later. I'll add a comment on the side to delete, where we can Control F, Control find, and delete all of them after the project. After we semi-complete the project. Okay, so next let's format our nav flex child one here. So dot nav hash flex child dash one, and then here flex grow equals to 1. So essentially I want each of the childs to take up the space equally. So we'll do 1 for flex grow. Essentially means how much do we want the element to grow. I'm gonna put 1 because I want it to grow 1 proportion, and then for the second child I'll put 1 as well, so that way it's 1 1 and it will take up the space evenly. Okay, so display flex. So I'll write a comment here. So to align our text inside text into the middle, align items center. So display flex align item center is essentially normally when you like the text would appear up here, and then display flex align item center would essentially just move like let's say this was the container and the text was here, right? Display flex align item center would just move the text so that it's like in the center of the container. Okay, let's format our next child. Okay, so the next thing we're going to format is this structure here, the nav flex child 2. So nav dash flex child 2, which essentially references our class anchor here. So flex grow equals to 1, and then padding dash right equals to 15px, because I just want some spacing. I want some spacing from the right. Here, let's go back to the Google homepage. Like you see here, so we're essentially formatting this right now, the Gmail images, this, what do you call it? Right side of the nav bar. And as you can see, this profile icon, there's some spacing from the edge, right? So we just want to add padding. What was that I typed? Padding right. So 15px, just a little bit of spacing from the edge. Let me add a comment here. Okay. Spacing from the edge. Here, let me also add borders on these smaller containers just so you guys can see. I wonder if I can just copy and paste here. Copy, paste. And we'll delete these later. So let's change the color for these just to help differentiate. So we'll make these blue, Okay, so if I just drag up my preview, so it looks like that so far. And now we want to fix these listed items into just horizontal, right? So let's do that next. Okay. So let's comment Nav Bar links. Let me drag this a little bit up so you guys can see the effects while we write the code. So next is our Nav Bar links. We want to format now our unordered list. So this reference here, nav bar left. So dot nav bar left. Whoops, these are all caps. Nav dash bar left. So list style type. We want none because right now the default is these periods. So let's change that to none. As you can see, after we wrote that, the what do you call it? The dots disappeared. Next is we'll format the positioning, or like how it's placed. Margin 0, padding equals to 0, and then text align. So we want the text to align to our left. Okay, cool. Now we'll format. The next thing we'll format is our nav bar right. So this unordered list here. So nav dash bar right. And list dash style type. We want none as well. And then margin 0. Padding equals to 0. Text align equals to the right. We want these to be placed on the right. So as you can see, that text align right moved those items that used to be here all the way to the right. Okay, cool. Next thing we want to format are our listed items within the unordered list. So let's go ahead and do that. So dot nav. Okay, where was my reference? Nav. So we want to format these LIs that are currently located inside nav flex containers. So what we can do is dot nav flex dash container and then LIs. So this essentially means all listed items that are within the nav flex container reference, which is this one, that kind of envelopes. Is that a word? That kind of captures all these sub elements, right? So envelope. I'm pretty sure that's a word. Okay, whatever. Okay, display inline block. So this will make the what do you call it? The items, our listed items, placed horizontally. As you can see, now it's not vertical anymore. This has changed to horizontal kind of placement. Padding 5px. This will give some spacing from top and bottom. Our margin will be 0. 5px. This will be left and right. Color. So with color, what we can do is we want to apply the color for the font of these listed items. You can do that, but if you want to mimic the Google homepage, you can do that by using developer tools. So again, we can just right click inspect, right, element, and in this inspector tab we have the color picker, and then if we hover over what text Google is using on their page, we can just copy it. Copy, right? We click and copy, and then if we go back to our tab here, we can just Control V, paste that. Great. And then our font size, we saw earlier, I think it was about 14. Yeah, so font size is 14 pixels, so let's use that as well. 14px. And another effect that I want to apply is what it will look like if we were to hover over the links. So so we'll essentially just copy this, and then at the end of li we'll write semicolon hover. So this means if you hover over the A elements, we will apply this formatting. Here, let me write that. All li elements within our nav flex container. So text declaration underline. So when we hover over the links, we want it to show an underline, because if we go back to our Google homepage, let's close this. We see when we hover over these link elements that are up here, you see an underline. So that's why we'll mimic that same effect. So let's try doing that over our own link elements. As you can see, when you hover over, you see the underline. Okay, cool. The next thing we want to build is our body. Now that we've finished with our navigation bar, so next step is our body, which is this section here, which is the logo, the search bar, the buttons, and the text at the bottom that offers in another language. So what we're going to do here is we're going to, in HTML, we'll start in HTML first and build our grid. So let's just clean up our header a little bit, and then we'll fill in our main. So let's move down into our main. So here we'll first create the overall grid container, and then inside the grid container we'll create smaller sub-containers. Okay, so let's first create our main container. So div class equals to grid box container. That's what we'll call it. And then we'll have a closing somewhere at the bottom. Div dash div, and then just to help clarify, so we don't get lost, we can add a comment here. Whoops. Close grid box container. So this closing div belongs to that. Let's see here. Okay, let's start creating our sub containers. So first we'll write first row Google Maps. Whoops, Google logo. So div class, and we'll call this grid first row. And then inside here we'll add our we'll add our Google logo. So img class, we'll call it the Google logo. src equals to, so the address, we have it I think over here, so we'll just copy this, and we'll paste it here. And then we want to call, so in case if the link doesn't work, we'll use an alt attribute. We'll call it Google logo pic, and then close. And then we have to close this div as well. Close. Okay. Let's create our second. Div. So second row and search icon. So in the second row, we have two things. We first have the search bar, and then we have this icon. So let's first create a column for the icon, and then we'll create for the search bar. We'll create a spacing for the search bar. So let's do the search icon first. Div class equals to grid second row search icon. And here we'll just insert the img. So let me just copy this, paste it here. Yeah, and then we'll take this URL and then we'll paste it into here. We'll just change this to search icon, and then for all we'll change that to search icon, and we'll close it with a div. Div. Okay, so we're still on our second row. The next thing we want to do is create our search bar. So second row, our search bar input. So start with our div. Class equals to grid second row. Div class second row. Okay. And then we'll close. And then in between, we'll add our search bar. So input class equals to search dash bar, ID equals to search dash bar, type equals to text. So type will dictate what kind of input it is. So in this case, since it's a search bar, we'll put text, which will allow us to type things into it, and then autofocus. So this attribute will allow, like once you load the page, it should, autofocus attribute should hone in on that text box. So the blinker will start there. Okay, what else do I need to do? I need to close input. So let's add a comment here. Autofocus is to load blinker in search bar. Okay, let me scroll down a bit. Okay, so we're gonna move on to our third. So don't at the bottom it looks a bit jumbled at the moment. Don't worry about that. We will clean it up, or we'll structure it with CSS in a bit. Let's create our third row. So third row. Okay, so in our third, so we finished the first row, which is the logo. The second row, which has the two elements, the icon and the search bar, and now we're on our third row, which is these two buttons here. So there's two elements. So let's go back. So the first button is what we're going to create. This one here, Google search. First button. Div class equals to grid third row first button, and then we should close this as well. Div. Whoops. And then input. Class equals to first button, and then type equals to submit the value. So if you want it to be a clicking type of button, then this attribute type would be submit, and then the value would be the text inside. So equals to I think use Google search. And then we want to create our second button. So let's just copy this and paste, and then we'll just make some slight adjustments. So third row, second button, second button, second button here, second button here as well, second, type submit, that's fine. And then we just want to change the value, so I'm feeling lucky, so let's put that in. I'm feeling lucky. Feeling lucky. Okay, cool. Save it. So now we have the two buttons, as you can see, a search bar, two buttons, fine, great. The next thing we want to create is the fourth row. So let's make some space. We can just copy this, I think, and then make some slight adjustments. Fourth row. Offered in sentence. So here, grid, change it to dash fourth row. There's no input, so let's just delete this. Instead, we'll write Google offered in, and here we need to input that link type of text. So a class equals to quotation language link href. Let's just leave an empty link for now, and then français, and then we'll close our a link. Okay, cool. So the fourth row is created now. Google offered in français. Great. Great. Okay, what are we missing? So we have this closes this, which is great, and we have the other div, which closes the main container. Cool. I think that should be fine. Okay, let's now go over to our CSS. Okay, so grid box container. Okay, we'll apply our formatting to the main container first, which is I think somewhere up here. Yeah, right here. So div class grid box container. So dot grid. Oh, some caps. Grid box container. Display. We want it to be a grid. Grid template columns. We want it to be 4 columns, so repeat 4 with the same, so one fraction, which means it'll have 4 columns distributed evenly, and then grid auto rows. So for this one, Google is slightly bigger than the other rows. These ones are quite thin. These look like they're 1 to 1, but this one looks like it's probably, from just eyeballing it, looks like 2, worth 2. So that's why I'm going to write 2 fraction, right? And 1 fraction, 1 fraction, 1 fraction. Oops, 1 fraction, 1 fraction. So in total we have 4 rows, but just the first one is twice the height of these other 3 rows. Okay, cool. So gap 20px. So this is the spacing in between the rows. So I'll just put 20px. This is spacing between the rows. Margin auto. So this one centers our Google container. So we want our Google body to be in the middle, so we're going to set up that. And then we want to add some spacing from our nav bar. So move our body a little bit to the center of the page, so margin top, 150px. So this adds spacing from our nav bar width. This is, so right now the body is covering I guess 100% of the screen. We want it to just be somewhere in the middle, so I'll just give it 700 px. Master width determines all elements within. And then I'll give a border just so you guys can see it. 2px. Let's give this a green color. Green. Continue with our CS formatting. Perhaps it's just missing the formatting. That's why it looks kind of weird right now. So this is spacing top to bottom. Okay, so the next thing we want to format is our grid first row. So this one here. So over here, I'm going to reference the grid first row. So grid first row, grid column. So we want it to start at the very first column and then to stop at, so we want it to take up all 4 columns. So end at the start of the 5th column. So this means one dash 5 essentially means it'll cover from the start of column 1 to the start of column 5, which is the end of column 4. So it essentially just means it takes up all 4 columns. Grid dash row. So this is the first row, so grid row will be equal to 1, and then that's that, grid first row. And then the next thing we want to format is our second row search icon. Dot grid second row search icon, and then grid dash column. So in here we want to search icon. We want it to be, the icon is in the first column, so we'll put 1. Put 1, and then grid dash row. This will be in the second row, and we'll put z dash index equals to 2 because we're going to create the search bar next, and we don't want the search bar to cover up our search icon. So need, otherwise search bar will cover icon. Okay, so the next thing we want to create is our search bar input, which is this one here. Okay, so grid second, oh, oops. Grid second row. So here we have grid column. So this one, the grid second row, which is the search bar, we want it to take up the entire all 4 columns. So we'll do start of 1 and then ending at the start of column, the start of 5, which is the end of column 4. So this will take up all 4 columns. Grid row will be, we're still on the second row, so 2. And then the next thing that we want to format is third row. So in our third row we have 2 elements, the first button and the second button. So let's first start with the third row first button. So grid third row first button. So this references our anchor class here, grid third row first button. So our grid column. We want it to, so let's go back to our Google page. We can see that it's not in the first column, it starts on the second column. It starts on the second column and it ends on the start of the fourth column. So here, let me bring back to our outline. So the Google search starts on the second, right? And it ends on the start of the third. So in grid column, we'll write grid third row first button, second, third. Okay, now we will move on to, we finished grid third row first button. So now we're on to third row second button. Grid third row second button. Okay, so grid dash column. So this one, let's go back to our outline. So we're creating this button, the I'm feeling lucky. So it starts at the start of the third column and it ends at the start of the fourth column. So for a grid column, we will put 3-4, so start at the third and it ends at the start of the fourth. So grid row, we're still on the third column, grid row, third column, right? And then what are we formatting next? Next, we are formatting our fourth row offered in sentence. So dot grid fourth dash row. So grid dash column equals, so this, we want to create this text, this on the grid fourth row, we want to create this text. So it's between column, it's within column 2 and 3. So the start of column 2 and it ends at the start of column 4. So that's what we'll put, column 2, start of column 2 and then ends at the start of column 4. And then we're on the fourth row, grid row 4. So I think we created the structuring for the grids inside our grid container. Okay, cool. So let's now format the contents within a grid. We essentially created the, oh here, I'll paste in the border so you guys can see. We essentially, what we just did was just create the structuring within inside the grid, but we have to also format the contents within. So let me just apply the border so you guys can see. Let's make it, what color should we make it? Let's make it blue. Blue. Okay, let me copy this and then I'll paste it in the other ones. And so paste it here. Oh, where's my delete comment? And we should have a delete comment here. To delete. And then copy, paste. And then we'll copy this. And we'll paste it here. We'll paste it. Second row. I'll paste it here. We'll paste it here. Paste it here. So this way you guys can see the structuring that we just created. So the green is our master container, our main container, and inside we have smaller grid containers. So the first one, logo, we just needed one to cover from left to right. In the second one, we had two elements, the logo and the search bar. So you can see here there's two sections of it. In the third row, we have two smaller containers for the two buttons. And then in the fourth row, we just have one container, but it starts at the second column and ends at the start of the fourth column. Cool. So let's just clean our body up a bit. I'm going to drag this down. So here we will start formatting our contents. So first row, contents. So here, let's scroll back to our first row. So here we have this image. So that's what we're going to format. Dot Google dash logo. The width. Let's make it 300 px. Display block. And then this is to center our Google logo. Margin dash left, auto, margin dash right, auto. Okay, so essentially margin left, auto, this will essentially instruct CSS to automatically measure the distributed, well, automatically calculate the even amount of spacing from the left, as well as we added margin right here to calculate the even amount of spacing from the right, so that Google will be centered right in the middle. Okay, let's now format our second row. Second row contents. So our second row contents will be two things, the search icon and the search bar input. So here we have the search icon here. Search icon dot search icon display block margin dash left 20px margin dash top 10px and then z index, just so that the icon will appear in front of the search bar, because right now the search bar, everything at default is a z index of 0, so z index of 1 means it takes priority over 0. And the next thing we want to format is our search bar. So this thing here, search bar, input class. So dot search bar. So width is, let's make it 80% of our green container. So 80%. And the height 2.5. So the height of the search bar, it's not too tall. So let's just use 2.5 rem. Padding 0.25 rem, and then 4 rem. So so the first is top and bottom. The second 4 rem is left and right, and I want the second to be a little bit higher value, because as we can see here, the text on the Google homepage, the text or the blinker kind of starts further away from the, what do you call it, the left. So that's why this value here is a little bit higher. So let me just add a comment: top, bottom, and left, right, to give space for icon. Okay, and then border 1px solid, and if if we go back here, we can inspect. Let's grab that color picker. Let's copy this color. Copy, and then where's our page? One solid. Border, and then border radius 2 round. So this will round out our borders, because if we go back here, we can see that it's rounded at the edge, at the corners, right? So that's what border radius will do. It will round out the edges. So display. Next thing we want to do is center our search bar. So display block. Center our search bar. Margin dash left, auto. Margin dash right, auto. And save. And another thing we want to format is upon hover, because if we go back, we can see that when we hover over it, there's some kind of drop shadow or shading that's occurring. So let's add that effect as well. So dot search bar. So essentially, we'll just reference what we referenced up here, search bar, except we'll just add semicolon hover to give the effect when we do hover over the bar. Filter, drop shadow, 4px, 5px, and we'll add 4dA. I think that was that's fine. I think this color should be okay. Search bar, hover, filter, drop dash shadow, 4px, 5px. Okay, cool. I think that color's fine. Or we can just take this and paste it here. Okay, cool. I think that works. Okay, great. Okay, so the next thing we want to format is our third row contents. So these ones here. Okay, so third row contents. First button. Width. We'll give it 150px. The height 40px. Background. We can take the background color from inspect. So if we use the inspector, what's this background color here? Okay, copied it, paste it here, and then semicolon, border dash radius. We want to round out the edges as well, so 2px. Border style, none, because as you can see, the buttons, they don't have any borders. It's only bordered up when we hover over it. So that's why we add border style none. Cursor, pointer. So when we hover over the button, our cursor will turn into a pointer. Display block, and this is to center our search. Center our what do you call it, button. No, to position our button, I say. To position our button. Margin dash left 20px. We also want to format the hovering, oops. We also want to format the hovering effects, so dot first button and then hover. So essentially we're just referencing this, but we're adding the colon and hover at the end to format how it looks like when we do hover over the button. So as we saw before, there's a border that shows when we do hover it. It looks like a dark gray, but dark gray border. And then when we do click on it, it turns blue. So I'm just gonna copy this blue color here. Copy, and then dot first button visited is what visited essentially means when you click on the button, and then same thing, border 2px solid, but then we control V copied the code that copied the color code that we just copied from the other page. Save. So now we just want to copy this code, and then because the second button is similar, we just have to make some slight adjustments. So we'll just copy that and we'll paste it down here. So here we'll change it to second button, because now we're formatting for this one here. So second button width. So we want the buttons to be same size. That's fine. Height, that's fine. Background's fine. Border radius, yeah, we want rounded edges. That's fine. That's fine. Display block, that's fine. We will change the margin, however, to 5px because we want it to be closer together. If it was at 20, it would have been too far from each other. We need to change this to second button. I think that should be okay. Okay, great. I think that's all we needed to change. Yeah. Okay, so what's next? Next is our fourth row. So if we scroll down a bit, the next thing we want to format is this guy here. Fourth row contents. So here we will write a dot grid. Fourth row text line center. And then in the fourth row, we can see that when we hover over the link, it underlines. So we'll add that effect. So dot grid fourth row so the link A grid fourth row A, so all A elements within the fourth row, as they are text declaration, we don't want any effects. However, when we do hover over it, grid fourth row A hover, then we want the text declaration to be underlined. Declaration underlined. Save. Okay, cool. Let's take a look. So when we hover over, it does underline. Okay, cool. And this one, it borders up when we hover over. Great, perfect. We finished the body. Now the last section and the third and last section that we want to create are these bars at the bottom here. And earlier we mentioned that these can be created similarly to our nav bar. So what I'm gonna do, or what we can do, is essentially just copy and paste our HTML coding going somewhere up here. You just paste it at the bottom, do some adjustments to create those gray bars. So I think it starts here, and then it stops here. So let's Control-C, copy, and then we are, so here, let's bottom tray. And then we'll paste it here, and then we'll make the adjustments right away. So instead of nav, let's call it tray. Nav here, so call it tray. So every nav wording, we'll adjust it to tray, so it doesn't mess up our nav bar at the top. Okay, great. And we will also change the text also. So the advertising, business, and how search works. So advertising, business, and how search works. So copy and then paste how search works. And then on the other side, we have privacy terms and settings. Privacy terms and settings. Privacy terms, and this one will be settings. And then we can delete this one here, this list item. Okay, great. So let's see here. So we have our main container, and then inside we have the tray bar to the left, which has advertising, business, how search works, and the bar on the right will have privacy terms and settings. I think that looks fine. Okay, so in CSS, let's format that. So bottom tray. Dot tray. So we're going to be formatting the main container first. So tray flex container display flex, and then flex direction space dash between, and then padding 15px. So this is top and bottom spacing. This essentially it's cushion. Makes bar thicker. And position fixed. So this will position at bottom. Width 100%. Left is 0px. And bottom is 0px. 0px, and our background color, and we can take that from developer tools. So let's just inspect this element. Copy the color. Oh no, where did the bar go? Is it because here we go. Let's just copy this. And then paste. We'll also add a border. Let's save this at the moment, but I'll add a border so you guys can see right now. Here, let me add a border. Oh wait, I can just copy and paste. Copy. Where did the border go? Where did those delete borders? Oh, here we go. Okay, let's grab one of these. Border. Let's make it red. Save. So this I can show you. So see, this is what we just created. That main container. Now let's create. Oh, let's format the links from inside our main container. So dot tray flex container a color, inherit, text decoration, none. So if, okay, great. So we removed that blue underline look. Next, we want to format our tray flex child 1 and tray flex child 2. So let's start with this one first. Dot tray flex child dash 1 flex grow. Oh wait, we can just copy. Yeah, we can just copy the CSS we had at the top and make some adjustments. So if we scroll up, where was it? Nav Bar left. Here we go. We'll copy. We'll start from here, and then we stop here. Okay, great. Okay, let's scroll back down. Let's paste it here and then make our adjustments. So here, tray, flex child 1, flex grow 1, that's fine. Margin dash left 10px. We want to add some spacing from the edge. Okay, that's fine. Flex child 2, flex grow 1, that's fine. Let's add margin left 30px, so that we have spacing from the side. Yeah, okay. From the side. Okay, I think we can fix what do you call it? The placement of the text in a bit. Let's keep going down. Nav bar left. This time, okay, that's fine. Margin. Let's do padding 0 is fine. Text left fine. Oh, we should change this to tray. Tray. These should be tray 2. Tray. So all the nav, I forgot to change those. So all these navs should be changed to tray to match, you know, our class anchors over here. Nav should be also tray. I think that we got all of them. Okay, so tray bar right, margin, try auto. Here, let me move this up a bit so you guys can see. Tray bar left, tray bar right, margin auto 0, text line right, tracks flex container, so all the listed items inside inline block, which made it horizontal. Great. Padding. Padding 5px. Let me add padding from left and right as well, 10px. So comment top, bottom, and left, right. The color of this text. So let's check out. Let's copy that color. There we go. 7111111. Okay, copied, and then go back to this page. We'll paste it here. Font size 14 is fine. Tray flex container, li hover, underline, which is fine. Okay, great, save. So if we move up So far, it looks like this. So we created the main container, which is in red, the 2 sub-containers, which is in blue. We formatted the text so that when we hover over, it underlines, and we copied the font color, which is great. I think the only thing we're missing is the background color. Yeah. Did we add the background color yet? Let's see here. It should be there. Background color. Yeah, we added it. Tray flex container. Okay. So the next thing we want to create is the bar above it, which is, I think, just shows your country. So mine's Canada, so let's just, at the moment it's Canada. Let's go to, oh shoot, sorry. We have to create the content in HTML first. So over here, we're still in main, so let's make some spacing, and then div class equals to country flex container, and then Canada, and then we'll close it. Div. Save, and then over in CSS. Oh, I guess we should call this country tray. Country tray. Country tray. So over here, we'll call it country tray. So I think for country tray, we can just copy and paste what we had up here, and then just make some adjustments. Where was it? No, I went too far. Here we go. Tray flex container. Let's copy this. Copy and then paste it here. Because it's similar. It's similar to the container that we just created. So we'll just copy the CSS. So we'll change flex direction because Canada, the country text starts at the beginning, at the left. So we'll do flex start. Padding, I guess we'll have to add some settings here. So padding top is 15px, padding bottom, we also want 15px. However, padding left, we want 20px because we saw that there is some spacing from the edge here until there's the text, so that's why I added padding left of 20px. Spacing from the edge. So position fix is fine. Width 100% is fine. That we'll keep that the same. That's fine. From the bottom, so since this bar is above our other bar, so from the bottom we want it to be 50px going upwards. I hope that's what it did. 50px. Position fixed. Width 100%. Left 0px. Background color, okay. That's fine. And then our font color should be our font color, I think we had it up here. Did we have it? Oh, if we didn't, then we can just copy it. Let's copy. I thought we had the font color. Copy and then paste it here. And just one more to change is the CSS reference. Country flex container, because this is referring to this. tree flex container. And I think that's all that we need. Okay, let's check it out. Okay, great. So now we have the two bars at the bottom. So the country tray and the bottom tray with the links. Okay, great. So I think that completes the project. Oh wait, we have to clean this up a bit. So right now our icons look a bit iffy, so we can just clean that up with CSS. Let me clean up HTML first. So this should be indented. In the body, footer. I guess in this case we don't need to use footer, so this is fine. And then over in our CSS, we'll call this icons. So the first one we want to fix is our square icon. Square icon, vertical align middle. So this should center it. Save. Square icon, vertical align middle. And the profile icon, top profile icon, vertical align middle. Should essentially complete the project, except we just need to clean out the borders. So let's just test it out in live view to see if the majority looks okay. So right now it's with the borders. All we need to do now is just clean and delete these borders. So I initially added these borders just to help visualize things, but now we can just clean them up. So all the ones that we comment to delete, we'll delete them now. Which is use Control F, delete. So delete here, and then next one delete. So delete here, and then delete this one, and then Control Find again, delete this one, Control Find, delete this one, Control Find, delete this one, Control Find, delete this one, and then Control Find, delete this one, Control Find, delete this one, then Control Find, delete this one, Control Find, delete this one, delete this one, delete this one, Control Find, delete. Oh, I think that's it. That's the last of it. So let's just save, and then if we go over here, all the borders should be gone. Great. Yeah, everything looks like it should. So yeah, we completed the project in Codepen. So now in the next phase of our video, I'm going to show you guys how to push your changes through on Git. I will show you guys how you can upload your project onto GitHub. So this is my already created repository, but what you guys would have done was create a new repository by clicking up here. Once you created your new repository, you would be given a SSH code. So here you would copy it, and then in your Git bash, let me load that up. You would create a clone of your GitHub repository. So you would type in git clone and then paste that link. So I've already created a git clone onto my local drive, so I'm not going to do it again, but I just typed it out just to show you guys what you would have done. And then once that is created, you would navigate. The next thing you would want to do is navigate to your folder. So that's, for me, it's placed in the Odin project, and then
command directory cd Google Homepage. So once you've navigated to your folder, so right now the folder is most likely empty, so you want to add for this project I added 3 files. So first is your readme touch is the touch command is essentially adding new files into that folder. So touch we'll call it readme.md. That's the first file. This file is usually contains a high-level brief of what the project is. So for example, title, description, author, and any high-level details that you want to put in there. And then the second file I want to add would be my HTML file, which I would call index.html. So that's the second one. And then the third one would be style.css, where that would contain my CSS formatting for my HTML file. So in total 3 files, readme.md, index.html, and then style.css. Since I've already added these, I don't want to add them again. So those would be now blank files in your folder, right? So if you were using Visual Studio, Visual Studio, I think what's this called? Visual Studio Code, right? Editor. So if you were using Visual Studio Code Editor, if you go to File and then you open the folder that we showed earlier, it would have loaded up the 3 files, index.html, style.css, and readme.md. However, these files would have been blank, so then you would have typed your details in here, or you would have made your changes and iterations, and after each, you would often save your iterations or certain changes, and by using the keyboard shortcut Control-S, Control-Save, or go to File and Save, and you would push these changes onto GitHub using your Git bash. So here I already have code in these files because I essentially just copied and pasted the code that we wrote on Codepen over to here. So for me, I didn't have many iterations on Visual Studio Code because my iterations were on Codepen, right? But let's say if you did make changes on here on Git bash, so let me load Git bash again. So on here, each iteration that you wanted to push onto GitHub, so for example, I'll do one instance now, which is the final instance of my code. You would have had git add readme.md, and then git add index.html, git add style.css. So these would push these files onto the staging area. So the next thing we want to do is commit. So git commit message final iteration or final HTML and CSS. The -m just means message. You would essentially write details of what changes or what version or changes you're making for this commit. So I guess you can also, for me, you can write the time and date here as well. So for example, March XX 20 whatever, time 11 a.m. or whatever date or time it is for you. And then you would commit it. And then the last thing, so the last command where you would actually see the upload onto GitHub would be git push origin main. So git push origin main would essentially upload all these 3 files that we've added and committed onto GitHub. So if you type in git push origin main, these would finalize and upload it onto your GitHub. That brings us to the end of the video. Thank you so much for watching. If you guys do want to support my work and this channel and this type of content, I would really appreciate if you guys could give it a like, and if you want to stay tuned for future videos, subscribe, and comments in the video really helps the YouTube algorithm. And all these things comes at no cost to you, so I would really appreciate it. And thank you again, and we'll catch you guys in the next video.